Hi, and welcome to the Specular Effect Trinidad Renaissance podcast. This is the first podcast, and this is my first guest. His name is Marino Ravenberg. Do I have that correct?
Yes, that's correct. Thanks for having me.
He's of Surinamese nationality, and he's a YouTuber. You know what? Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. Not a problem. Hi, whomever is listening or slash watching, whatever. My name is Marino Ravenberg. I am an occultist by trade. I live in Suriname and I was born in Suriname, so I have a dual nationality, like Specular Effect has mentioned. And yeah, the matters that we're going to discuss here will are soon to follow. That's why I'm here after all.
Awesome, awesome. So I watched a couple of your videos. The one that really got to me was where you were speaking about Suriname, and you were suggesting why basically Suriname is a shithole. Do you mind elaborating on that for our audience?
Yeah, no, I don't mind at all. Okay, I mean it's a given. Listen, let's just start at the beginning. Okay, long story short, Suriname is a former Dutch colony. It's part of the three Guyanas. You've got Guyana, who most people know, French Guyana, not so well known, and then you've got Suriname smack dab in the middle. Okay, Suriname was colonized by the Dutch back in colonial times, and despite the fact that Suriname became independent in 1975, it's in actuality and in practice, it still belongs to the Dutch. It still belongs to the Netherlands. Okay, all trade and commerce goes through the Netherlands. Okay, if you live here and you are an enemy of Holland, then you are going to have a real hard time doing the most basic of things. And yeah, Suriname is honestly to call Suriname a shithole is an insult to the phrase shithole. Okay, the phrase that President Trump used to label countries that are suffering and that are poor, either materially as well as immaterially. And yeah, that's the reason why Suriname is unknown. I mean, countries in Africa even enjoy have a better standing. Okay, these countries might be notorious, like Nigeria or Ghana, for whatever reason. We're talking about scammers, fraud, and all of that. But at least these countries are known. Okay, Suriname is so useless that it's not even worth acknowledging to the rest of the world. That's how useless Suriname is. The most basic of things are not present here. When I say that Suriname is worthless, I don't mean that Suriname is like Haiti, that you've got impoverished people here on an incredibly large scale. All of that is present, okay? But that's basically what 70% of Suriname looks like. The remaining 30%, roughly estimated, consists of people that try to pass themselves off as progressive and as being witted or being developed, but it couldn't be further from the truth. The majority of people here barely even know what a computer is. I mean, doing the most simplest of things, okay? Going about your daily life is a drag. When I say a drag, I mean really a drag. You've got traffic jams, you've got all the things that I've mentioned in my video, what life in Suriname is like. And the funny thing is, I made that video for customers of mine because I got sick and tired of people asking me, that country that you live in, where is it? Because I've never heard of it. And it's basically, I just made that video after 5 or 6 people asked me. And whenever someone asks me, I just send them the link and I tell them, knock yourself out, watch the entire thing, and then you'll know what country I live in or which country I live in. And yeah, by accident, by sheer accident, okay, I left it on public because most of the time when I make videos for customers, I put it on unlisted for obvious reasons, confidentiality reasons. But that video, I just left it on public, and before you know it, relatively speaking, blew up. That video has 12 to 1300 views right now, and believe me, by Surinamese standards, that's a lot. Barely anybody looks anything up on Suriname. No, I mean, why would you? The only people aside from researchers that look up what Suriname is, are a bunch of stupid preschoolers here that just have nothing to do. So they basically just waste their time online trying to find anything relating to Suriname. And that's also why you see some stupid comments in my in the comments section, okay, about people that make a bunch of stupid comments that aren't even relevant to the subject matter that is Suriname in said video.
We'll talk about that. We're going to talk about it.
So yeah.
Let's recap. So Suriname is semi-independent.
No, Suriname is completely independent on paper, but you've got things that happen in reality on the record as well as off the record. Okay, and like I said, in reality, okay, in actuality, so in practice, Suriname is not independent. Okay, but you'll only notice that if you live here for an extended amount of time. You'll see that everything has to go through the Netherlands.
Okay, so tell me about the effects of colonialism, because I have to ask this because I have been doing some independent research myself on many former colonies, such as Trinidad, where I'm from, Suriname, Guyana, Jamaica, the entire Caribbean basin to be precise, and even the colonies in Africa. What is your opinion about the effects of colonialism, post-colonialism?
Well, the effects of colonialism are, again, on a surface level, you'd say that if to be blunt, the white man, since most countries that colonize other countries are the majority of people living in are white. So basically, let's just label them white countries. Okay, we're talking about developed countries like Europe, most of Western Europe, North America, and whatnot. Yeah, these countries, in the beginning, people will say that these countries are the root of evil and that they're responsible for the fact that countries like Suriname are worth less than nothing. But believe me, that's not the case in reality. I also bring this topic to light in a video of mine that you commented on, Specular Effect. And in that video, I simply discussed the fact that colored people in general, to be honest, this is a generalization, are inferior. And that comes from me. I myself am colored, like I mentioned.
Hold on a second. Hold on. I have to chime in here, and I would say I totally 100% agree with you. But continue, please.
Yeah, I myself, okay, on paper, I am of a mixed race. My father was a black man, and my mother was an Indian, so Hindu.
I'm sorry.
And I am not going to sugarcoat anything. That's the way I am on my YouTube. People have told me that they like my blonde. I'm sorry, what was that?
I'm sorry about that. The connection is in and out.
Okay, no, the connection is the connection isn't the best I do. Yeah, the connection isn't the best. Let me see if it's my connection that's being a pain in the butt. I don't think so. No, I'm fine over here. Okay. In any case, I'll just continue. I wish I were at home. Okay, it wouldn't be an issue if I were home, but
right.
You caught me outside. In any case, so hence the sunglasses. In any case, yeah. Generally speaking, okay, colored people have how should I put this? They have the strong character trait, or they're very prone to blaming other people for their problems, specifically white people. Okay, it's all about mentality. Countries like Suriname are not worth less than nothing because the population is colored. This is a generalization. When I say that colored people are, for example, worthless, I don't mean that every colored person out there is worthless, okay? This is called the generalization of criminals. Not every black person out there is a criminal or a good for nothing. But globally, see for yourself, the majority of people in prisons, okay, specifically in Western countries, North America, Europe, are these people white? No. Are they Caucasian? No. The absolute majority, for example, in the US alone, are blacks, okay? Blacks in the US make up less than 20%, I think, roughly estimated. This is just a ballpark number. And yet, I think more than half of prisons in the US are filled with black people, with Negroes. And again, Suriname isn't the only country. The majority of countries are.
I'm going to chime in for a second. Yeah, you're absolutely right. As a matter of fact, in the United States, African Americans happen to make up 12.9% of the general populace. It's down from 13.2 as a result of African violence and African violent crime, black on black crime. And yes, they make up well into the 90th percentile range of the population of prisons. And yeah, I agree with you. You're absolutely right on that. People of color, and you know, this is one huge contention that I have with I say Africans because I'm speaking about African Americans as well as the African diaspora, right? They make it very bad. They make other people of color look very, very bad. And yeah, I just wanted to add that in there. You're absolutely correct. Continue, please.
Yeah, yeah. Unfortunately, liberalism. You're familiar with my political views. I'm an extreme alt-rightist. For me, nationalism and everything is everything. But liberalism, I don't have a problem with liberalism, but not. I do have one problem with extreme liberalism, which is basically similar to the Stockholm syndrome. That's simply a syndrome in which a victim identifies with its attacker and starts loving said attacker. And unfortunately, white liberals are ruining the West right now. Practically every Western country has major difficulties. Uncontrolled migration is one of them from work less than nothing countries like Suriname, and among a bunch of other problems which are causing these countries to severely drop or drastically drop in living standards. Okay, the U.S. is literally on the verge of collapsing. Canada the same, Australia the same. Western Europe is spiraling out of control, and it just goes on again. And like I mentioned in my videos, okay, black people are generally speaking, are the only ones that I've heard of that constantly refer to transatlantic slavery, the slavery in which whites enslaved blacks. I mentioned in my video too, over the course of mankind's history, practically every ethnicity has been enslaved one at some point. And worst cases of documented slavery were the whites were subjected to, specifically the in which the Ottoman Empire, Europe, a good chunk, exactly, okay, but you can easily up under white slavery on. And my point again is Caucasian person asking for reparations. Have you mentioned anything along the line that Muslims apologize to? But no, never have I heard that. Okay, but again, there are blacks in general that are doing well for themselves in Western countries that are making these so-called demands. And what's even worse is that white liberals would allow it. If someone asked me something like that, to be honest, I would honestly just tell that person, you have exactly 5 seconds to get out of my sight.
Right, right. For the sake of the audience, and because you were breaking up a little bit,
the connection, or I'm having great difficulties here. Hold on, let me see.
Yeah, the connection's a little bit faulty. I'm going to reiterate basically what you're saying.
No, okay. I can hear you.
So basically, what he's explaining is that you only hear the ubiquitous. I'm sorry, the constant narrative of slavery that you tend to get is that of African-only slavery, and the perpetrators happen to be white, the white man, the evil white man. And it's never taken into account that much of slavery, much of the history of slavery is that of non-white people, people of color enslaving other people of color, and including the white man. The white man was also enslaved in the Barbary. The Ottoman Empire, like you mentioned, the Islamic slave trade, they took advantage of a lot of Europeans in the Barbary, and white pirates were actually enslaved instead of white children. Circassian women, the Circassian women were basically groomed by their mothers for enslavement by Africans. And we're talking about Africans of sub-Saharan racial descent. And Africans from the Horn of Africa who happen to be that of what would be, I'm sorry, Malta, Egypt, etc. It's just the way it was. Everyone enslaved each other, and everyone was enslaved, and it's never ever spoken about it. Or what we get in the West, and I would even argue on a planet-wide scale, is that slavery is an African phenomenon, and this is simply not true. So continue, Marino.
Yeah. So, yeah, honestly, that's pretty much it. Meanwhile, I think I found a better spot where the reception is significantly better. I think you can also hear me better, right?
Yes, you sound better.
Okay. Yeah, I went outside. Okay. No, go ahead. Do you have any other questions for me?
Yeah, absolutely. You are you're very blunt. You're very candid with your opinions and your views, and this is something that I am often castigated for, because I myself, I think I'm worse than you. Okay, but this is just me being my worst critic, right? I tend to judge myself harshly. But what do people say or think about how you speak about your country? The things you have to say about your country. What do they say to you?
Well, let me just say that I do not consider myself Surinamese, but try to explain that to a Surinamese person, you'll have tremendous difficulty, because they're so dense, generally speaking, and so stupid that they can't even grasp the concept. Like I've told other people numerous times, I'm not Surinamese. It might say on paper that I'm Surinamese. I might have been born in Suriname. I was raised in Suriname. I know Suriname, I think, better than the average Surinamese person. I speak Surinamese fluently, better than the average Surinamese person. And again, I don't care about Suriname, and I'm not Surinamese simply due to that fact. When I say that I don't care about Suriname, I mean that I don't care about about Suriname's history. I don't care about Suriname's future. I don't even care if Suriname has a future or not. I care about Europe. I consider myself European. I care about what happens over there. I care about what happens elsewhere in the world in Western countries. But I honestly don't care about Suriname. I want nothing to do with Surinamese politics or otherwise. Okay. It's been literally, I think, 6 or 7 years since I've watched a local channel, or I've watched television, listened to the radio, or read a newspaper. But I just don't care. And people here in Suriname, the very few people that have watched my videos, especially one of them, they're really hurt. But you know how things go. Why do you think people are so offended? People are offended by the truth. They can't deal with harsh reality. It's like when you're not exactly the most good looking of people in the world, and someone like me just comes up to you and tells you that, hey, you're an ugly motherfucker, you're really you're a god awful. I mean, you look like a goddamn hyena that was raped by an elephant or something similar. I mean, I am like that, okay? I'm not just going to walk up to someone and insult them, but believe me, I have done it in the past. I can be a bit of a bully, okay? And why it hurts people so much is because it's true. They know that it's true, and they either live in denial or they can't deal with harsh reality. I judge myself, for one, by the same standards that I judge others, and that's what people have the biggest difficulty or greatest difficulty with. The one or two Surinamese people that have watched my videos, the official language spoken in Suriname is Dutch, by the way, obviously, since it used to be a colony of the Netherlands. One or two of them commented something along the lines of, what a crock of shit, seek mental help, you're disturbed, you're completely bitter, and so on. And I showed friends of mine, including a friend of mine in the Netherlands, and I was like, see, do you see what I mean when I call Surinamese people vermin, when I call them worth less than nothing? Because people don't live in Suriname. Vermin lives in Suriname for the most part. And he took a look at it and he was like, no, I see what you mean. Okay. And I told him, this is what almost every person here is like. So you can imagine, okay, why I, for one, rarely smile. I'm not saying that every person here is like that, but the overwhelming majority is, okay?
Yes,
Make no
yes, I
mistake.
understand. Absolutely. Now, I have a question for you. Um, why do you see yourself or consider yourself to be European?
I consider myself European, like I said, because my heart belongs to Europe. I care about what happens to Europe. I care about what happens there, and I care about the high living standards that Europe
Are you there? I think we lost you.
has always held in high regard. Okay, over here in Suriname, there is no living standard. Again, let me just put it this way: I love Europe. Okay, I love the West, but I don't love Suriname.
Okay.
I just don't care for it.
Do you think it has a lot to do with the values and the lack of I don't know? Do you think Surinamese are not as progressive as Europeans have been?
I know for a fact that they're not. Okay, believe me. Here, Suriname is so useless that, like I said, the most basic of things are already a challenge to accomplish. If you come over here, right, and you want to settle in, you're going to have to do the basic things. You're going to have to either buy a house or an apartment. You're going to have electricity and water installed. You're going to have you're going to have to seek out an internet provider. Good luck with all of those. Okay. Believe me, it's going to take a good while. And even the choices that you have are like choosing between two stool samples. One is bigger, but the other one is smellier. You'll have to choose one. Okay, but
Right, right.
you don't want to choose any of them. But again, you have to make a choice. The majority of people here, they also don't like companies here that offer these services, basic services, but they still sign with these companies because they have no other choice. There is barely any trade and commerce here in the sense of healthy competition. There are no competing companies here. You've got one water company, one power company, they're government owned. You've only got two internet providers, and one of them doesn't even offer broadband internet. So you're forced to go to make do with the one company. It just keeps going on. Imagine living daily life like that, okay, going through that.
Right. So, and are you familiar with the effects or the manifestations of IQ? Do you think IQ plays a role on that?
No, I just think it has to do with mentality. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, generally speaking, colored people don't display a correct mentality. They're uncivilized in general, either physically or otherwise. Okay. And with whites, it's the opposite. That's why you see that white countries don't have problems like the example that I'm going to list next. Here in Suriname, for example, you can't open up a public bathroom. There are one or two public bathrooms, but they're very rare. And even then, you need to have an attendant present at all times. Abroad, that's not the case. In Belgium, for example, or France, a roughly estimated 90% chance you can open up as many public bathrooms as you want. The chances of them getting trashed is very low. But here, the one or two bathrooms, okay, you should only have the balls to open up or to give Suriname a bathroom if you're an embassy from a foreign country. You just give Suriname as part of some deal. Just open up a public bathroom here. I can guarantee you the Netherlands has done it in the past before. What do you think happens? Good for nothing parasites go in there and they literally piss and shit all over the place, and then they smear all that shit over the walls and break all the tiles, and before you know it, it's over. No more public bathroom.
Wow. That's rather interesting and disgusting at the same time. I have to ask you now. What? Wow, that's very disturbing. I'm sorry. Suriname has an IQ of 89, which is higher than that of Trinidad and Guyana. Trinidad has an IQ of 85, and Guyana has an IQ of 87. Okay. Now, an IQ of a nation tells you about the wealth of a nation. It tells you about the not just the literacy rate, but it tells you about how they govern. It tells you the level of corruption, the level or the rate of violent crime that you can expect, etc. Tell me about. I know that you don't see it in terms of IQ. However, with that description that I just gave you, the relevance of IQ, do you see IQ having an impact or encompassing basically what you described?
No, honestly, I don't think so. IQ can be a tricky thing, okay? You've got several kinds of being smart. You can be intellectually smart, and you can just be smart in a common sense, in a common everyday way, just logical thinking and rational reasoning and whatnot. In Suriname, that's not the case. Okay, the numbers that I give in the video, what life in Suriname is like in the description. I
Right.
mean, Suriname's quality of life ranking and all of that. Okay, these things are accurate, but not 100% accurate. I would say they're roughly estimated 90% accurate. And like I said before, it's not just in Suriname. The problem that most countries that are so worthless like Suriname have is of mentality. If people had the right mentality, they actually stop making excuses and they stop behaving like primitive animals and just acted like normal people,
Wow, you
then you
sound
wouldn't
like
have an
me.
issue.
You sound like me. Go ahead.
Yeah, if they actually did that, then it wouldn't be a problem. And the wealthy here, which make up, I think, less than 10% of the population of Suriname, the wealthy people here are just a bunch of worthless wannabes. These people try to pass themselves off as progressive and as wealthy and powerful and as intellectual in the same time, just for the sake of gaining envy from their neighbors. But believe me, it's nothing but corruption. It's nothing but taking advantage of a delicate situation. Like I mentioned before, okay, the problem that Suriname has is that there's little to no there's little to no adequate commerce and industry here. You've only got one of every company, practically one or two of them. And these companies, since they control the monopoly, their attitude basically towards the public is either my way or the highway, and they're exploiting that to the fullest. Okay, simple
Interesting.
example. Yeah, Suriname's primary internet provider, not just internet provider, we're talking about data communications provider, you name it. It's called Telesur. It stands for Telecommunications Company Suriname. It's an abbreviation. It's just
Got it.
shortened.
That's right. Okay.
Uh-huh. Yeah. And the thing is that before a competiting company came along, that competiting company isn't even 10 years in Suriname. Before that time, let's just say roughly estimated up to 2005, 2006, even longer. I'm not really keeping track. Before that, that company was the only telecom company in Suriname. So if you wanted something, you wanted to buy a SIM card for your cell phone or mobile phone, you wanted to purchase a data package internet wise, you name it. It doesn't matter what you wanted to do. The second you have to buy one of these, you have to purchase one of these services. The problem is that, again, it's ridiculously expensive and you have nowhere else to turn to. Let's just say an example, okay? One SIM card back then used to cost $50. Can you imagine that globally? A SIM card
Wow.
costing $50. That's how expensive it was. People literally held on to their SIM cards for dear life. Now, since the competing company came along, I mean, Telesur has done everything, and I mean everything to sustain the trust of the public and all of that. Now, a SIM card literally only costs, I think, what, $1, $2. You've
Mhm.
got people over here that have 5 to 6 to 10 cell phone numbers, even, and half of them don't work after a month. They just throw their SIM cards away. They discard them carelessly. That's an example.
Right. 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 Um, so I've always I speak generally the same way about where I'm from, Trinidad, and about Trinidadians being primarily savage people, very primitive. Just
Mhm.
recently, I made a post on Facebook about, whenever I think about them, I constantly have to remind myself that these are people that are fascinated by footwear. You know,
Mhm.
this is what drives them, right? Now,
Mhm.
I've received some flack, but I've also received a lot of support from Trinidadians, especially those in the
Mhm.
United States and Canada
Mhm.
and the UK.
Mhm.
However, I have to ask you, what is the demography? Tell me about the demography, the birth rates, the death rates, the crime rates in Suriname. Tell me about that.
Well, regarding demographics, okay, the birth rate approximately equals the death rate.
Wow.
But even if the death rate slightly exceeds the birth rate, you won't notice it because you do have a lot of foreigners here in Suriname, foreigners that aren't doing well in their own country. Okay, honestly, you have the amount of Dutch people coming over here keeps slowly increasing ever since 10 years ago. And it might sound blunt, but that's not believe me, that's not blunt, okay? You've got a lot of Dutch people that can't deal with the high living standards and the fast-paced way of living in the Netherlands, in Holland. So as a result, they come over here because here you can live off of 200 euros a month. Okay, the small amount of money that they do get from the Netherlands, they can easily live off of that here. You can rent an apartment and whatnot. You can, in any case, you won't die. You won't end up on the side of the street. But in the Netherlands, 200 euros is nothing. 200 euros will literally only get you, I think, groceries for a week or something, less than a week even.
Right,
Renting a
right.
decent apartment in the Netherlands, in Amsterdam or Rotterdam, is already 1,500 euros and up. Aside from that, you've got a bunch of illegal Brazilians here. Okay, the thing is that Suriname is rich in precious metals, terrestrial wise, like gold and so on, in the jungle, since it borders the Amazonian rainforest in the south, geographically, if you were to look at a map. And yeah, in the south or down south is Brazil. And what these Brazilians do, they simply notice that Suriname is rife with gold, that there's a lot of gold here to be had or to be digged up, and that Suriname is worth less than nothing. There is no border patrol, little to no border patrol, no coast guard near the borders, nothing. So they can just easily cross and trek through the jungle, and boom, they make money that they can never ever hope to make in their own country, Brazil. The majority of Brazilians here are from Belém, I think. That's the city closest to the rainforest. And believe me, these people are Brazilian vermin. They're not people. Okay, they can barely speak their own language properly. They can't do anything. They have no sense of self-worth whatsoever. Nothing.
Right, right, right. The riffraff. The riffraff.
Mm-hmm.
So I understand that Suriname is just a little bit shy of 550,000, the population size. Um, what is the crime rate like? And if you don't mind going into the demographics, what's the racial demographics?
Racial demographics, Suriname consists of, let's just say, roughly estimated at least 75% blacks. Okay, by blacks I mean Negroes, I mean people of African descent. Okay, it doesn't matter whether their roots are in the city or in the jungle, in a village, in the jungle, you name it. It doesn't matter. Okay, they're either the descendants of slaves that were brought here by white Dutch people or white Dutch colonialists or otherwise. But bottom line is that they're of African heritage. That's 70 to 75%. 20% or 15% would be Indians, so Hindus. For that same reason, that were also brought here by white Dutch colonialists, along with Indonesians or Japanese people. And the minority, let's just say 5% to 10%, consists of people like me, either people of a mixed race or Caucasian or Jewish or otherwise.
Very similar to Trinidad. Now, are there any racial tensions? And the reason I ask this because I have no other choice but to contrast it to where I'm from, Trinidad, where 34.2% are Africans, and I think it's 35 or 36% are East Indians, and the rest, as you mentioned, are outliers, right? What about the racial tensions? Are there any racial tensions?
There are racial tensions here, immense racial tensions, but they're limited to trash talk, to be honest. Rarely will people go fist to fist, so to speak, for the sake of ethnicity or race. No, it's just smiling to each other when you're in front of each other. That's how they live. But the second they turn their backs, it's like that stupid nigger, that dumb Indian, and so on. So it's limited to that. You're relatively safe here in Suriname, regardless of your ethnicity. People will maybe try to bully you every now and then if you're Chinese or if you come from China or Asia, or if you come from, regardless of your ethnicity, if you're an Indian, you name it, people will make mentions like masala, curry, things like that. But it's limited to that. That's all.
Right. Basically the same thing that goes on in Trinidad and Guyana. Now, what is the violent crime rate as it pertains to race? Because I'll be honest with you, I have done a lot of research onto race and violent crime, and I decided to make mine very region specific, which is Trinidad. And like I mentioned, the African population is responsible for a tremendous amount of violent crime. And this is the same thing that can be found in the United States. It's the same thing that can be found in anywhere in the Caribbean basin, and including Guyana. So I'm curious about the violent crime rate in Suriname.
Well, the violent crime rate in Suriname is approximately the same, okay? Blacks are predominantly responsible for, let's just say, 90% of all kinds of violence that are committed here, all kinds of criminal activities that are committed here.
I'm sorry, I hate to interject, but for the sake of emphasis, do you mind repeating that, please?
Yeah, I said roughly estimated. Blacks are responsible, so Negroes are responsible for 90% of the violent crime statistics and anything criminal that goes on in Suriname. We're talking about anything from a robbery to assault, anything in between, everything else in between, okay, are committed by blacks.
Good. Now continue, please, if you have anything else to add on that.
Yeah, I mean, you do have other ethnicities here that commit crime, but not nearly on such a scale. The outliers, we're talking about the remaining 10 to 5%, consists of people that commit forgery, more things relating to money and financial greed. They either embezzle money out of the company's treasury that they work for, or otherwise, okay, it's something that has to do with money. They either steal money, they either forge, they either disrupt or forge numbers at their companies that they work for in order to obtain some money or something similar. But that is it, okay? In all things relating to serious crimes, we're talking about things relating where someone can get seriously injured or death. Yeah, those are blacks. 9 out of 10 times, it's the black man.
Right. So in terms of white collar crime, you find other races and ethnicities engaging in white collar crime, but predominantly the African dominates violent crime. That's very interesting. I mean, I had to ask for the sake of my audience because I have taken on the task of documenting this fact. And in Trinidad, Trinidad has, for the most part, dubbed itself as a multiculturalist nation, right? Where speaking on race, especially race and violence and violent crime, is considered taboo. And like you mentioned before, many people, they smile in each other's faces. They would even do business, right? They'll even hang out. But in closed quarters, they say, hey, you know, they talk about it. They talk about Africans and, you know, their violent crime propensity and you know, their inclination to just do vile shit. However, when they're called upon to actually speak out on it, they refuse to. Do you have any opinion as to why that would be the case?
I'm sorry, you fell out just now. Can you repeat the last 10 seconds of what you said just now?
So when we know the fact about Africans committing overwhelmingly the most violent crime, right? And they will even, you know, Indians and Africans and people in between would hang out with Africans and they would smile and they would, you know, they call it liming. They would hang out and be friends, etc. But in close quarters, they talk about it among each other. They would say, hey, you know, Africans this, Africans that. But when called upon to speak out on African violent crime, they refuse to. Do you have any sort of, do you have any opinion as to why?
Yeah, I do. It's just the growing, disgustingly growing trend of liberalism that spreads like a cancer across the entire world, okay? Unfortunately, it's almost as if we're living in some kind of twilight zone where everything's backwards, okay? Stating the obvious or dealing with facts that might hurt people's emotions or people's feelings has become a taboo. The thing is too that again, I don't want to get political here, but the thing is too that we're facing some kind of globalist organization or just an organization similar to the European Union, okay, that's left-leaning, that's far left-leaning, and they simply want a world without borders so they can rule over said world. And therefore, they automatically do everything in their power including wasting a ridiculous amount of resources on covering up things like these. Basically, talking about the truth, talking about the painful truth has become something of a taboo, and you're an enemy of the state if you do so. And that's why people tend to cover things up, and that's why they don't want to talk about things like these, because they're afraid of getting in trouble. They might lose their jobs, they
Right.
might lose this, they might lose that, their family might disown them. It just goes on and on. It's
Right.
happening in practically every Western country already, the US included.
Right. Right. You're absolutely right about that. I agree. Now, tell me about Surinamese, the African population in regards to festivities. Do they have a carnival like how Trinidad has a carnival and Brazil has a carnival?
Yes, yes, but not specifically a carnival. Okay, I'm going to list first off holidays. Suriname has a ridiculous amount of holidays. I used to have a friend in Jamaica, and he didn't believe me. And I simply sent him the English language page of the Surinamese government's list of holidays. They release a list of holidays each year because it's so prone to changing. And he just wouldn't believe me. He said, wow, Suriname has a lot of holidays. And unfortunately, again, the truth and fact of the matter is that Surinamese people, generally speaking, are ridiculously lazy. Okay. They just go about when working, most of them just commit to doing as little as possible. And Suriname, I think on average, just a rough estimation, has 1.5 holidays every month. Every month. So at least 12 or 13 holidays a year. It's more, I think, but at least 12 or 13.
If I'm not mistaken, I think it's similar. What you're expressing
Mhm.
is very much similar to Trinidad in terms of how many holidays they have and their work ethic.
Mhm.
It's atrocious.
Yeah.
Atrocious, yeah.
Mhm.
So, what about the cultural expressions in Suriname?
Yeah. Yeah, no, in Suriname, practically that's why I mentioned holidays as an example, okay?
Right, right.
The government basically issues a holiday to every culture or every ethnicity here. You know, Indians get their own holiday, blacks get their own holidays, uh, Chinese people that are located here get their own holidays. It just goes on, okay? And yeah, these festivities are somewhat lively, but only if you fall within that ethnic class. If you're, for example, a bush Negro, you live outside the city, you live ridiculously primitive, then yeah, something like celebrating such a thing will definitely appeal to you. You have them dancing on coal, you have them publicly executing rituals in which descendants, not descendants, in which their forefathers are summoned, to put it that way. It just goes on.
So, what is the dominant cultural expression of Suriname?
Well, Suriname, that's tricky. Suriname really has no dominant cultural expression, okay? Despite the fact that blacks outnumber every ethnicity here greatly or significantly, blacks here, most of them lack the resources to express themselves, especially on a global scale. So the minorities, okay, let's just say people like me are more people that are known internationally, but the blacks are more obscure in that sense.
That is quite interesting because in Trinidad, carnival, which is actually, we can argue all day and say it came from the French carnival, but if you compare carnival of Trinidad or Brazil to that of the French carnival, it's fucking night and day. But yeah,
Mhm.
in Trinidad, it's primarily African. I call it Africanism. I call it Stone Age culture, Stone Age behavior. You know, the gyrating
Mhm.
and the the overly sexualized antics. I refer to it as the cultural, the sociocultural expression of a primitive people of the Stone Age. And I find that's interesting that Suriname, with such a large African population, they don't have that. That's quite interesting. Why do you think that
No,
is?
no, no, no. No, you're mistaken. They do have that, or at very least some of the elements, okay?
So you,
They do have
so
that.
you do find the whining and the gyrating and the sexual antics and behavior, right?
Like no other, believe me, like no other. They want to commit, they want to display any act of fornication
Yes, yes.
publicly at every turn, okay? Believe me, you've got several things. You'll even find half naked women to naked women just bluntly, to put it that way, backing it up the way they do in rap videos,
Right.
American rap videos. It just keeps going on and on like that, okay? And listen, if these were good looking people, then I don't know, maybe I wouldn't have such a problem with it, you know, as a man myself. But believe me, these are God. They just look. Let me just put it this way, okay? People in Suriname, the majority of them, it looks as almost. Sometimes I tell people, it's like the population of Suriname came forth when a couple of guys committed bestiality and they just couldn't sustain their sexual prowess anymore. Then they just couldn't keep themselves in anymore. They
Urges,
just
right.
felt like, yeah, they just really felt like going at it. And the animals, unfortunately, were the only ones that were near. And boom, the population of Suriname is the result.
Oh my
I mean,
God.
I'm not exaggerating. I'm not kidding. Okay,
I
listen, you've
understand.
got
I understand how you
just
see it. Yes.
yeah, yeah. They're stupid. They are ugly in general. I mean, if you had other qualities, then at least you have other qualities. You know, you might not be the best looking, but or you might not be the best looking, but you're smart, or you have other things that give you value. But I mean, you really ridiculously ugly. Sometimes it's like, I mean, almost it's like you're in Africa, but I think not even Africa is that bad. Some parts of Suriname, in any case.
But yeah, yeah. Well, I started working on a book, basically speaking on the sociocultural evolutionary stagnation, I would call it, of the African, which basically suggests that for the most part, Africans have been stagnated culturally. And this is not just through song and dance, but it also applies to, tribalism, tribal warfare, how they engage in commerce, how they engage culturally and socially with each other. It's through violence, and they tend to organize themselves for warfare among each other. So what I am interested in is, do you see this kind of thing where the violent crime is concerned, that they tend to kill each other?
Yes, but not in a bloods versus scripts description in the way that you bring it up. Okay, Suriname simply doesn't have the amount of people, nor does it have people that possess that level of intelligence or balls to the point where they would do something like that. Well, like I said, okay, the minority population of Suriname that can actually express themselves, they're more a bunch of worthless wannabes, okay? They almost copy everything they see from the West. I mean, if you've got a rapper that's popular, an artist that's popular, 90% chance that a Surinamese artist will either try to copy him or her, and not only do that, but do it in a horrendously bad way, so a failed copy, or something similar. And but they simply don't have the balls to erect gangs and obtain weapons, even if it were to be illegal. They simply don't lack they lack the mental fortitude and the intellectual capacity, and last but not least, the resources to do so. So no, there's little to no gang warfare here. Again, if even if you were to fire one shot, I think everybody would just scatter. Everybody would flee. That's they have some kind of, they have, I don't know if you want to call it cowardice, but if so, then yeah, they do they do display cowardly behavior like that too.
That's quite interesting, very interesting, and thank you for that. Is Are there any things that you would like to share
The
in regards to
relating to Suriname.
and just your general thoughts? You mentioned people of color. And I have to tell you, man, I totally agree with you. It's not just Africans, but it's just people of color in general. But I would stand out, and I would stand up and say Africans just really make it bad for people of color. In that
Yeah, I know.
regard, do you have anything to share on that?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, blacks are definitely, I won't say that, bluntly put, I won't say that blacks are the most worthless ethnicity or race on earth, but because God knows that others like Indians and Muslims aren't too far behind.
Right,
But
right.
yeah, but they definitely take top 3 or top 5. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Without, beyond a shadow of a doubt. Yeah, and like I said, regardless of ethnicity, okay, colored people aren't worthless, generally speaking, because of their skin color. I've told someone that here openly. I told that person, it was a cab driver that I befriended. I told them, you're not worthless because you're black. You're worthless because of your attitude, okay? your lack of self-worth and your lack of morals are what make you inferior, not your skin color. And this applies to most colored people. That's why countries like Suriname are underdeveloped. I mean, if Suriname had a population that was predominantly Caucasian, believe me, I almost wish that were the case. Okay, and I'm not racist, but I don't care
I agree
honestly,
with you.
even if someone thinks that he's racist. No,
I
if
agree with
Suriname
you.
was actually, yeah, if Suriname actually had a majority white or Caucasian populace, then Suriname would have, I'm sure that Suriname would be on the same level as Sweden or Switzerland country, and Suriname would be known in the world. But right now, Suriname is so unknown that it's not even worth acknowledging. I mean, I can go to Japan and no one has a fucking clue that Suriname even exists.
Right, right. Now, I agree with you, but I cannot say I agree with you without, presenting the, a couple other alternative perspectives on what it is you're saying. Now, you say I agree with you when you say if Trinidad were still colonized by the British, it would be a horse of a different color. And I think you're expressing the same thing for Suriname. Now, I asked you before about colonialism and the effects of post-colonialism. Do you think that colonialism had a net positive on say behavior, development, and basically just an effect on the entire the demography of Suriname?
Yes, obviously, colonialism has had a significant impact on the population, okay? And I'm not going to sugarcoat that too. What colonialists basically did is they just dumped a bunch of workers here, and after all resources, or pretty much all resources, were depleted, the majority of resources were depleted, they just left, and the rest had to fend for themselves. And they just stopped by every now and then to see what was going on. But like I said, it's up to the population. If you want to make your country better, you need to start with mentality. But without mentality, believe me, Suriname is not going to be, and it's never going to be turned into something of worth. And I'm not
Right,
seeing it happening. Suriname will always be worthless. But
right,
yeah, regarding colonialism, this doesn't just account for Suriname. It accounts for every country similar to Suriname.
right, right,
And funny that you mention it. Okay, French Guyana is still an overseas department of France. And I don't know if this is actually factual, but I either read somewhere a long time ago or I heard from someone that French Guyana was one of the countries that when they saw what kind of abysmal situation Suriname, was found themselves in right after its independency, similar to Guyana too, they automatically said to themselves, "No, look at what happened to our neighbors. We want to remain a colony of the French."
wow,
But
wow,
it seemingly hasn't turned out too well for them because they're more or less on the same level as Suriname. Don't get me wrong; they're still better than Suriname and Guyana, but not a lot better. Okay, but I am of the opinion that Suriname would still be better off if it had still retained its dependency on the Netherlands.
right,
Things just
right,
wouldn't be the case on paper. It would also be the case in reality. Right now, it's the other way around. Okay, like I said in the beginning, Suriname is independent on paper. 1975, I think November the 25th. I think, I am sure of the date. 1975. That's when Suriname became independent. But yeah, if Suriname had told the Netherlands that we're just going to remain independent, then I think things would still be better. We'd be dealing in euros right now and whatnot. But instead of that, Suriname has its abysmally weak own currency, the Surinamese dollar, and it just goes on.
right, right. Now here's a curveball for you. Um, had it not been for the white man, had it not been for colonialism, where do you think former colonies such as Suriname, Trinidad, Guyana, French Guyana, Jamaica, where do you think they would have been?
I honestly don't think that they would have been anywhere. These countries wouldn't even exist to begin with. Okay, these countries, it would just be nothing but part of South America and part of the rainforest in South America, and that's all. Maybe filled with a couple of tribes of Native Americans and whatnot, but nothing beyond that point. Okay.
Right, right. Now, I've been working on this model, this theory that, for the most part, I don't think Trinidadians were ready for the internet. I honestly do not think they were ready for modernity. I think, for the most part, primarily Africans were taken from a place and from a setting that they were pretty much used to and placed in modernity. And afterward, they were just basically, I wouldn't say abandoned, but they were left up to themselves to self-rule, to self-govern. And we're seeing the ramifications of all of that, that they're not ready for modernity. And this, we weren't ready for the internet. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, the internet aside, okay, it has to do, the internet is more or less neutral. It has to do, like I said, with the country itself and its ratio of development. I mean, the chances of someone in Suriname, for example, being an online troll are a lot higher than elsewhere. Believe me, I've experienced that firsthand. I mean, a normal person would behave in a normal way and would answer in a normal way, but believe me, a Surinamese person, like I said, the example that I listed of the comment on my video is an example. If you don't agree with me, or if you're just hurt with what I said, but you can't, because you can't deal with harsh reality, or because you simply have no refute, you simply can't refute what it is that I'm saying, then either don't say anything or just tell me something along the lines of, you are right in what you're saying, but nevertheless, okay, it's not really nice to talk about your country like that, assuming that you're from Suriname. If I were a Surinamese person and I love Suriname, I would answer some. If I answered, I wouldn't answer. Okay, I wouldn't comment even. But if I would comment, then I would comment something along the lines of that. You don't
Yeah.
have to be so mean about it or something similar. But
Do you get that
no,
often?
no. I've gotten only a couple of comments, which I know are from either worthless parasites here, 2 or 3 comments, and another one from a stupid kid or so. But
Right.
nothing, no opinion. Believe me, no opinion that is noteworthy. No opinion that is actually worth even mentioning. Like I said, just a bunch of stupid trolls and jackasses comment every now and then. But I have a zero tolerance policy on my YouTube channel. Okay, anyone that says something that is, or anyone that just falls out of line, severely falls out of line, that person is blocked and his comment is promptly deleted before he can count to 10. I'm serious.
Right. You also talked about Black Lives Matter. Have you seen the effects of Black Lives Matter in Suriname?
No, not really. Okay, no active Black Lives Matter movement here or similar. Black Lives Matter is more limited to the West, but that would not have that hasn't spread to here. But I understand that too. Okay, like I said before, the majority of blacks here simply don't have the mental or intellectual capacity to understand what Black Lives Matter is even about. So
Right,
they're
right.
like, okay, what the hell is that? They have no idea. After that, they'll just turn their faces and go about their day.
So it has not emboldened them. It has not even crossed the I don't know, crossed their minds for them to even format an opinion on it.
No, not really. Believe me, I haven't heard anyone here mention Black Lives Matter. And Black Lives Matter, I made that video a good while ago. We're talking about Black Lives Matter has moreover affected blacks in Western countries. Okay, the only country where I've heard blacks also behave in a similar way to Black Lives Matter is um, is in the Netherlands. Okay, years ago I read some post or some article years ago, I think 5 years ago or something, that blacks in the Netherlands wanted whites to apologize for slavery, white Dutch people to apologize for slavery. And I was literally like, look at that crock of shit that those dumb Negroes again are
Right,
acting
right,
about.
right,
And
right.
I mean, I told some of them, you've got some of them that flee to here because they are of the opinion that they're being discriminated against citizens. And I told them, that's not their fault. That's normal. Okay. The majority of people in Holland are white or Caucasian traditionally. So what do you expect? You're like a chicken that's acting as a cat and you just mingle around a group of cats and expect to be treated like one, but you're not a cat, you're a chicken. Okay,
Right,
so it's either put up or shut up. You either socialize for the most part with your own ethnic kind there, the minority of blacks that are there, or you just move to a country where you're content with your own kind. And some of them do commit to that by coming to Suriname. And when they come to Suriname, it's nothing but complaints about the Netherlands and whatnot. And I've told them multiple times, okay, even in its worst day, the Netherlands will still be, I think, 1,000 times roughly estimated worth more than Suriname. But don't blame the Netherlands, okay? Don't badmouth the Netherlands because you were mistreated there, because people see you as, a stupid nigger or something, because people
Right.
look at you that way, or
Right.
people have that opinion of you and treat you like that. That's normal. I mean, it's the same thing here with whites. It's the same thing here with whites, and but that's why white people here, they rarely socialize with black people, only in an adventurous sense. You've got some white expats here, Dutch expats, that come over here and they stay here for 2 months or 3 months, and for them having a black boyfriend is literally just like an adventure for them, a mini adventure. But that is all, nothing serious beyond that point.
That's very interesting. Now, what would you say to critics? What would you say to people who say, hey, Marino, you say all of these things about your country, but this is where you were born, this is where you're from. What about staying and making your country better? What about running for office? What about starting a coalition? What about starting some sort of organization to help better your country? What would you say to these people?
Well, I would say to these people the same thing that I'm going to say to you, but because believe me, it has happened, okay? You have had people, I have had people. As a matter of fact, short story, okay? This subject really came to light when I was poised to leave Suriname. I was going to travel abroad, and I was going to go to Eastern Europe specifically. And there was one gigantic dramatical escapade took place at the local airport, and long story short, I was barred from leaving Suriname. Okay, not legally, but the local airport safety department found it unwise to make me travel for no logical or reason on paper, nothing. Okay, they were very secretive about it, and that's when that same cab driver that I referred to earlier in the conversation, and that's when he told me, maybe he jokingly told me that maybe I should run for office here. Maybe I'm destined to become the next president of Suriname. But I told him the same thing that I'm going to tell you. I don't want that. Like I said previously, I don't care about Suriname. Okay, I literally couldn't care less about Suriname if I tried. That might sound harsh. The only good thing here, similar to countries like Suriname, is nature. That's the only thing that's worth something here. That's what the majority of tourists come for. I mean, screw that. That's what all tourists come for. None of them come for anything else.
It's the
There's
same thing.
nothing else here.
It's the same thing with Trinidad. The topography is beautiful, and I agree with you. That's all I see. The topography is beautiful, and I'll be honest with you, childhood was blissful. It was great, but now it's not a place. It's not a place that I would dream about visiting or leaving. I'm sorry, living at all. And I totally understand your sentiments. I don't know if you've ever watched my videos, but I think I've expressed this ad nauseum that Trinidad is a fucking shithole and it needs a total revamping. Everything. I would even go so far as to say if it were possible to be nuked, go right ahead, because the type of shit that goes on in that country, man, it's outrageous. And yeah, it's so fucking embarrassing. But I'm saying all this to let you know that the reason why I asked that question is because I have received the same sort of thing, the same sort of response. Like, it's your country, you should not have left, and this and that. It's your job to make it better, et cetera, et cetera. And I totally agree with you. It's not. I care about my childhood in Trinidad, and I find it to be appalling that the youth growing in Trinidad today will never be able to experience the joy and the bliss of growing up in Trinidad the way I did. So I totally understand you. And that's the only reason why I asked that question, is because I've been met with the same sort of rhetoric. And my response is a little bit different, but it's the same, with the same tone, I would put it. It's just with the same tone and the same sentiments, pretty much.
No, it's the same thing. I also told people that a good while ago, some of them, and I told them honestly, personally, I think Suriname, sometimes I just want to bomb the bejesus out of Suriname. Okay, I just want to nuke Suriname from orbit or something similar. But Unfortunately, Suriname isn't even worth nuking. It would be a waste of the nuke, and it would be a waste of the ammunition. Suriname is not even worth that. It's not
Oh,
even worth bombing. That's how worthless it is. Okay,
Okay.
and yeah, and in terms of making things better here, yeah, I have had one or two comments on that video, what life in Suriname is like, where someone told me, hey, it's if there's nothing there, then it's our duty. The person was speaking in general. It's our job to make it better. But that person wasn't local. That person was just speaking in general. You know, things can be made better if there's nothing there. And people have said this all throughout Suriname's history. Okay, why are so many talented people leaving? Because Suriname has had people with Surinamese roots, at least, people whose grandparents or parents were from Suriname, but most of them either left to the Netherlands or somewhere. The absolute majority is the Netherlands. Suriname has produced primarily, let's just say, especially soccer players. The time when the Netherlands was really a powerhouse when it comes to soccer, and Suriname performed in the World Cup, people with Surinamese ancestry or people like Edgar Davids, I don't know if you remember him, Patrick Cliver.
Of course, of
I'm not a
course.
soccer fan, a huge soccer fan, but all of these guys are guys that have
You're
Surinamese,
kidding me.
they have Surinamese roots. Their roots are in Suriname.
Davids and Patrick Cliver, they're actually Surinamese or have Surinamese ancestry.
Yeah, they have Surinamese ancestry. Like I said, their parents or grandparents are from Suriname. Believe me. Okay, and you've got a bunch of other players. Let's just say practically every black player that you saw back in the '90s playing for the Netherlands was indirectly from Suriname.
Interesting.
Let's say, yeah, Edgar Davids was one of them. Patrick Cliver, and you also had another one. He plays for AC Milan, or he played lastly for AC Milan. He's a bald, short black guy. I forgot his name. I can't put my finger on it, but he is also from Suriname. As a
I
matter
think I
of
know who
fact,
you're
he
talking
visited
about.
Suriname.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Is there anything that you would like to say about yourself for the audience? Do you want to tell them where they can find your videos and stuff that you write, or any online activities that you're into that you think that they'd be better off being privy to?
Nothing. No, honestly, nothing really. My channel primarily deals with esoteric topics. Okay, that's what 95% of my channel is about. The videos in which I discuss neutral things, things of a political nature, and for example, Suriname's horrendous state, abhorrent state. These were simply exceptions. Okay, these were neutral videos. Videos that I just thought to make for exceptional reasons, like what I mentioned and told you in the beginning. I made that living in life in Suriname video for customers. Um, and yeah, I remember too that someone told me, that same cab driver, when someone commented something stupid on one of my videos, it just came to light. I was with him and I told him I can't delete that comment and block that person from my phone, so I'll do it when I get home. And when I told him, and he told me, his reaction was, why? It's not necessary to make such a video. I mean, he loves Suriname, but even he will admit that Suriname is worth less than nothing. And he told me, white people already, or Westerners are already familiar with the fact that Suriname is worth less than nothing. And that's when I told him, no, I made that video for customers, blah, 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 etc., etc. And he told me they also know that Suriname is worthless. It's not necessary, because now what you're going to have is that you're going to get agitated and riled up, and you're just going to cause yourself mental damage, however brief and superficial, by getting agitated over what some imbecile said or on that video, when it comes to stupid comments. Let's just say stupid shit comments. If someone says something like that, you're gone. Like I said, you're gone before you can even say ah. If you
Right,
refresh your
right.
page even once, you won't even find your comment anymore, and you'll see that you can't even comment on my channel. I automatically ban you for life. This doesn't
Right,
just
right,
apply to videos on Suriname or stuff like that. This applies to every person practically that makes a wrong move on my channel.
right, right.
Because I get these kind of people, unfortunately, regularly. Well, we're supposed to pass for people, and I just immediately, I mean, my mentality is, boom, in the trash can you go. Oh, look, a worthless parasite. Boom, in the trash can you go. A worthless parasite. Boom, in the trash can you go. I immediately just trash you. And
Right.
referring back to what you said earlier, right, about running for office and actually establishing something here in Suriname. most Surinamese people here, they view me as an outsider. I'm basically an outcast, but I don't mind that. As a matter of fact, I prefer it that way. Like I said, I don't care about Suriname. I'm not Surinamese. I don't feel for the country. I have no heart for spec, which is nature. For the rest, I could not care less about Suriname if I tried. And I therefore don't want to establish a single thing here. I mean, every second that I'm here is a second too many. That might sound extreme, but that's really how I feel. I
No,
mean,
no,
in
no.
Suriname right now, yeah, the
You
in
are
Suriname
understood.
right
I
now,
understand you very well. I understand you.
yeah, I live like a tourist here in Suriname. Okay, you can tell just by this video. I mean, I am wearing sunglasses right now, blue tinted sunglasses. I live literally like a tourist. I do things that tourists do here. I go to resorts outside the city. I visit indigenous villages, and I spend a good deal of money on things like these things the average person here can't even afford. Average people here in Suriname make in American dollars, let's just say 250 $300 at the most. Okay, and let's just say a tour that I go on costs that much. Okay, just one tour for the day, let's just say between 10 and 5 is $300 or 250, you name it. So it's not doable for the average person here.
Right, right,
um, so yeah, that's not doable. Okay, I know it because I've been there. I wasn't always well off the way I am now. I mean,
right,
now
right.
I deal strictly in American currency, but I have also worked for close to 10 years for local companies, and I've done the dirty work, and I've made the same amount of money, minimum wage, and all of that. So I know what it's like having difficulty getting by and only living paycheck to paycheck. You know, making do with the little that you have, and all of that. And yeah, like I said, I don't want to establish anything here because even if you wanted to establish something here, it's like trying to open up a supermarket in the desert. Okay, you'll get little to no attention. For example, I rarely do business with Surinamese people. None, not one person in Suriname have I done business with that actually matters. The absolute majority, or the let's just say every customer, okay, not majority, every customer that I have had, and I think that I will have, is from abroad, either from Europe or Asia or America, either US or either American or Canadian. But again, no one from Suriname. Okay, no one from Suriname. People here rarely watch my videos. I mean, the people here that have taken notice of the fact that I'm doing well on YouTube, or people that are just sticking their nose because they're nosy like that. People here are incredibly nosy. I'm not saying that it's just here. Okay, a lot of people globally, they just enjoy gossiping and sticking their nose where it doesn't belong, or
Right,
they just enjoy talking about things that aren't worth talking about. We're talking about the most mundanest of things.
right,
I, for
right.
example, will rarely talk about someone's children, or where someone lives, the
Yes,
house
yes.
the person lives in. I don't care about stuff like that. But believe me, the
Inconsequential
yeah,
banter, which often results in violence. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, but believe me, the majority of people here are like that. It's just out of jealousy and out of envy. Do you see the car that guy drives? Do you see the house he lives in? He has these children. He likes going to eat at this restaurant. I don't have time for that nonsense. The majority of people here are barely even familiar with esoteric topics that I discuss on my channel.
Right,
So
right,
therefore,
right.
even if they
Yeah,
wanted to follow it, they can't follow it. They don't
yeah,
have the mental capacity to follow what it is that I do. So I have to ridiculously dumb it down for them.
yeah. So you've challenged the status quo about your country. The exoticism of Suriname, etc. And do you find yourself? Do you find people being in atonement with you or not?
I'm sorry, you broke up just now. What did you say?
I said that you challenged the status quo of your country, the exoticism surrounding your country. The topography, and the people are nice, and you could get this type of food over here, and it's so cool. You've
Mm-hmm.
exposed that. You've exposed Suriname for what it is. Do you find a
Mm-hmm.
lot of people being in atonement with what you say, or no? Hello?
No, I'm sorry. I'm still here. I don't know what's wrong. The connection is breaking up for some reason. I was able to make out everything that you said except the last 5 seconds. After, do you? Can you
Do you
repeat that,
find
please?
people? Do you find people agreeing with you?
People agreeing with me with all the negative things that I said that are true.
Well,
No, no. Like I said,
I would bail you out and say, no, they're not negative things. It's not about whether or not it's negative. It's whether or not it's true, what you're saying. So do you find yourself being find people being in atonement with the truth about what you're saying?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, people have tremendous difficulty dealing with any of this stuff. I mean, if I were to mention this right in public, believe me, everybody would just scratch their heads and would either walk away in shame, or they would do something similar. They just can't deal with harsh reality, and it's typical liberal behavior. Okay, they can't deal with harsh reality, and as a direct result or consequence, they try to attack me personally. I've had the same thing on my YouTube channel. The one or two comments, like I just told you, literally, what a crock of shit. Seek mental help. You're disturbed. You're insane. You're completely bitter. They have a job. People discuss things like that. I even had a black guy by the name of Darren Blake. I don't know if he was from Suriname, right? But the guy, I mean, I could tell how much I hurt him because he can't deal with reality. He started saying a bunch of things. You look poor. The background in your video looks like you're in a poor house. No one uses the phrase blacks anymore. Everybody says Creole. A bunch of things that made
Right.
me
Right.
giggle. I mean, I really laughed. Okay,
Yes.
stuff like
Yes.
this
They
is
often.
amusing and offensive. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. They often resort to ad hominems and insults, and that's when you
Hmm.
know that you've struck a nerve in them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, people don't get upset over things that are false. I mean, if you're not
Right.
ugly and if I called you ugly, you wouldn't bother because you know that it's not true. But if I really hit the nail on the head and I really dig deep inside your life over a touchy subject, something that you were already insecure over, that's like throwing salt into an open wound. And believe me, listen, if you're a normal adult person, mentally adult, and you can stand your ground, then you're not going to deny it, okay? But if you're someone that's already insecure about himself or herself and over the world, and you can't even sort your own things out, to put it that way, you can't sort your own shit out, then yeah, believe me, it's really going to hurt you. I mean, I've done it with people. Like I told you, I can be a bit of a bully sometimes. A couple of years ago, I worked at a call center, right? And again, Suriname is worth less than nothing. So that call center is worth less than nothing, duplicated times, multiplied by 10.
Right.
So yeah, I just worked there for a year and a half. And the only pleasure that I got or derived from working there was making fun of the circus freaks that are supposed to pass for people or were supposed to pass for people. And you name it. A lot of these guys, like I told you, people in Suriname look like the product of bestiality. Some of them, they're really ugly. And there was this girl, I'm not kidding, she literally looked like a hyena, and that's what I called her hyena. And
Okay.
yeah, and she just lost it. I could see the pain and the agony I was causing her in her eyes. I could see the hurtfulness in her eyes.
But I have to
And
ask
she
you,
tried.
based on that, do you often push boundaries, like test limits? You come off as
Yo,
that kind of
definitely.
person.
Yeah, no, no, that's what I'm all about. My slogan
Right.
is no pain, no gain. Okay, I really go way past the default boundary or limit or threshold. But the drawback of that sometimes is that I do tend to overreach myself. Sometimes, only sometimes.
Right. 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 I understand you. I totally get you. Um, well, it was very nice having you on. I want to thank you very much, and I think we should do this more often. We should talk more often about our countries and whatever you may learn or pick up during the month or the weeks or the months. Let's share it because I think there are a lot of similarities between what goes on in Suriname, the ethos, the zeitgeist of a third world country as Suriname and a third world country like Guyana. I'm sorry, like Trinidad. So I think we should do
Mhm.
this more often, man. We should talk about these things more often. And I want to
Yeah,
thank
sure.
you again. Thank you very, very, very much for doing this interview with me.
No
If
problem.
is
The
there
pleasure
anything
is all
else?
mine.
Sure, sure. Is there anything else you'd like to add in closing?
No, nothing really. Just that I am available 24/7. So if you want to do this again, just hit me up via whatever medium, via Messenger or whatever fits best for you, and I'll get back to you right away.
Awesome, awesome. All right, well, thank you very much, Marino. It was a pleasure having you, and see you next time.
Okay, no problem. Thanks. Bye.